everyone. I am Cris Rabello.
And I am Bia Yuri.
We are the CEO of the Divine Quantum Institute in Hawaii, Honolulu. Today, you are pleased to welcome Mr. Don Green, Executive Director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation.
Don is a very successful businessman, and he has nearly 45 years of banking, finance, and entrepreneurship experience. So welcome, Don. Thank you so much for your time and for being here with us today.
Well, I appreciate you deeply for your willingness to promote the work that we're doing, because it's obviously we absolutely love what we do. I mean, we could be doing so many other things but I never imagined just sitting in a rocking chair. I think the ideal situation would be helping someone till your time runs up. You know, when we're, and I think about that, we're not remembered for what we got in life. Nobody cares how much money I got, how much stock I got, how much house I got. But if someone says, gosh, I wonder how many young people he helped, how many people he helped in his lifetime. And that's the reason we do what we're doing. No, we can't help everyone, but for everyone we do make a world of difference, because you can take money and put your name on a building, or you can take money and educate a kid, a young person, and they can not only does them good, but they can pass it along to ones that follow them. You know, we live in a poverty-stricken area, and lots of people do, and it can be one generation after a generation of poverty, because that's all they've been around. And so if you come in my office and you walk in the door, you see a nice sign on the inside that my social media lady, Alana, put up. It says there's two ways to learn. One's from books and the other's from being around smarter people. Don Green. I said, Lana, why'd you put that up for? She said, well, you've told me that 1,000 times. And I said, well, you're a professor, a full-time professor, and you teach social media. But if you find some way I can learn other than them two meetings, would you let me know? And so far, she's not giving me nothing else. So it's extremely important. So if people don't read, using Mark Twain, you're no better off if you couldn't read.
Yeah.
So if you don't read, you're already behind. And then if you're around people who are losers, I did a fundraising with, I guess it was Zig Ziglar used the term. He said, if you want to be around winners, just hang around winners. And said, if you want to be a loser, guess what? You know, we become what people we associate with. A little of it rubs off on us. And that's very, very important, because like I'm sitting here looking at you lovely ladies, but I don't learn nothing when I'm talking. I got to listen to learn. And so that's the reason it's important to be around other people. And that's the reason it's important to read and read. I've read, and I don't mean this to boast or anything. Just the fact is, I've read thousands of books, okay? I mean, right now I'm publishing 160 some books, and some of them I've probably read 10 times, like the ones I do myself, because I just wouldn't want to think I put a book out and it had a bunch of errors in it and so forth. And so after I want to get them published, I probably don't read them very much. But time I do read the manuscript and edit and read it and read it. But you know, a lot of the books, that even books that's not ours, like Man's Search for Meaning, which is Viktor Frankl, the Jewish boy that was spent the time in Auschwitz prison, and book sold millions of copies. And there's some other, I taught this material 12 times, and there's a book that I use, and I don't have it here in front of me, it's in my home, but it's What Do You Say When You Talk to Yourself? It's by a guy by the name of Hemstettler, Helmsettler. He's got a PhD. And of course, it's on, if you look at the title, it's autosuggestion, you know, which is the most important conversation we ever have is one to have with yourself. Just like you two ladies, to me, you both look lovely. But one of you can say the other, I don't think you're exactly dressed right to go out tonight. And you can let that bother you, or you can throw it off. But when you look in the mirror and you say, gosh, I don't look very good, I don't think I'm dressed right, we tend to believe what we say to ourselves, especially if we keep repeating it. That's autosuggestion. That's part of it. And I read one time where Hill wrote down about 30 some things that people would say to themselves, like, why would you say stuff to yourself like, I never have no money. There's nobody wants to speak to me. They're not going to hire me. I mean, we talk ourselves into this poverty stricken. And Napoleon told us over and over and over, he said, keep your mind on what you want and keep your mind off what you don't want. So, yeah. I mean, people don't talk about it a lot, but I still do vision boards, okay? Oh, I mean, I put on it, and I always have. Even when I was 20, making $1.15 an hour, I put a picture up of a black Mercedes, a picture of a gold Rolex, and a picture of a stack of money, because I wanted it in my mind.
Do you have a vision board in your room? How do you do the vision board? Because that's one thing that people always are curious about vision boards. How do you do that?
Just like, well, take my house, okay? I was married for 54 years before my wife passed away 7 years ago. And I'm planning this stuff, and I'm making $1.15 an hour. And on the inside of where I clean up for morning vanity and so forth, the little closet there on the door, I would post. And she was looking at a Better Homes and Garden magazine, and it had an ad in it for, now this is many, many years ago, because I built a house in 1976, okay? That's 46 years ago. And there was a house, 2-story, made out of Canadian cedar shakes, foundation and native stone. And she was just looking at it, and she said she liked that. So I wrote the company. Once I cut the picture out, and I put it on the door where I could see it every day. But I wrote that company, and I asked them, well, did that house exist, or is that just that? No, I said the house is in Brandonville, which is outside of Richmond, Virginia. By this time in 76, I'm working in a bank. I went from a finance company at $1.15 an hour to the second person in the bank. And I wrote them, and the CEO of the bank came to my office one day and said, Don, there's a seminar in Richmond, Virginia, putting on by the Federal Reserve. Said it's about 3 days. Said it could be very educational. Would you like to go? I said, I would love it. It's just been a matter of weeks that I had posted this picture of this house on my vision board. And I wrote the company, and they said it's in a little community called Brandonville, which is outside of Richmond, Virginia. And then here the CEO offers me a trip up there. So I took my camera and I took my wife, and several things happened. One of them was, the guy's name was Robert Black. He was a Federal Reserve governor, and he was a speaker. And they put out a little pamphlet of his education. And of course, I've been in school basically all my life, I think. But there was one of the schools he attended was Stonier Graduate School of Banking, which is at Rutgers University up in New Jersey. And when they put that brochure out with his background, that he was a curious guy, is one of the 12 Federal Reserve governors in the banking system, run the banking system. My wife looked at me, she said, you should go to that school. And so when I got back, I told the CEO, and he said, sure, we'll pay for you to go the summers. And I didn't know nobody that ever went to graduate school, how hard it'd be, or you have to do a thesis to graduate and so forth, and what was involved. But I went. But the other thing is, we stopped at a little community of Brandonville, which was new housing development. We took pictures of that house, and while the guy designed it was there was a salesperson there, and he gave me an address of the guy that designed the house. And so we got back, wrote him, and I bought the plans. We built that house, and I still live in it today after these many years. And so what we picture in our mind, I love the mountains, and I go to North Carolina. In fact, I'm going to spend a weekend of the 4th at Grove Park, close to Biltmore in Asheville. But going across the mountains over the interstate, there's a wall in front of a church, which I never saw, but it's got Job's quote on it. It says, without a vision, my people perish. what we have to learn to do is to see ourselves where we want to be rather than where we are. Yeah. You understand?
The law, and pretty much that's what people know nowadays as law of attraction, right? Like the vision boards, and think about the things that we want instead of what we don't want. And I think that like the law of attraction became very popular after the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, and then Napoleon Hill also discussed the law of attraction, right, in many of his works. And what would you say is the key to manifest the dreams, and why do you think people fail in attracting what they want?
Well, they attract what they don't want because that's what their mind dwells on. Of course, and Hill wrote about law of attraction. It's not new. He wrote about it 100 years ago, okay? It's in his magazine. I published that information 100 years ago. But I went around speaking to about 20 high schools right before graduation, to the juniors and seniors, tell them about the college. We're located on a campus at University of Virginia, Wise. And I told them about, and here's what I told them was, why is it we'll include our parents and we include ourselves in? People plan for a vacation. I can hear the conversation even in my family said, I don't think I want to go to the beach this year. What's wrong with the beach? A kid loves the beach. Why don't we go to the mountains? And they discuss this no more and get back from the vacation. And they'll talk about now where we want to go next year. Why do they spend all this time planning their vacation and they don't do the same with their life? They don't plan their lives. I don't think I laid it out or what have you. I did. There's a little book I just got published, and I'm not just promoting it, but it's called Millionaire Mindset. Why do people do, and I did a lot of studying, of course, my background was finance, but I read an NBC Wall Street poll. It said that 2 out of every 3 adults in the United States over the age of 65 do not have $1,000 in cash.
Wow.
That is pitiful. I'll use a quote from Victor Hugo. I borrowed something other over 100 years old. He said, it's not that people were planning to fail. They just failed to plan. You get it? I mean, we plan our vacations, but why don't we sit down and do a vision board and say this? And you know, you gotta be careful. Just like spending $10,000 for a watch because it was on your vision board and you thought that was important. It was at the time because I grew up in a home without a bathroom. We didn't have running water. And so I assigned to my mind that success was a gold Rolex, a black Mercedes, and $1 million. Not too good, not really smart, but at that age of 20, 21 years old, you think it's defined by success by the toys I accumulated. Of course, I know better now because it's what things that we do that's left here when we're gone that made the world just a little bit better place in which to live is a true success. But it's extremely important that we keep our mind on these things that will bring us to where we want to be rather than where we are. I mean, the past is the past. You can't change it. But people are slow about making changes and they don't take risks. Very few people take risks. I mean, Hill in his thing says, like in planning, he said, how many people actually start off and plan something and accomplish it? And they would say 2, 3 on the average. He said, no, the average less than 1. Most people have an idea or a thought, but they don't do anything with it. Think and Grow Rich is a wonderful title, but ideas are worthless unless you do something with them. You could have the best plans in the world, but most people are waiting till everything is perfect. Oh, I'll go back to school when I get my credit card paid off, or when this happens, when that happens. The first night of the class, and I taught this 12 times as a 3-hour credit course, I told the students, now I want you to, when you go to your dorm or where you're staying at, when you get out of this class, get your calendar, and I want you to look for someday on there. Someday is not on the calendar. They 7 days a week, and someday's not one of them. When we say someday I'm going to lose a little weight, some days I'm going to start an exercise program, that's nothing but lying to ourselves. That's all it is. And And it's important. It's important that we concentrate on those things we want. If you would read the second chapter of Think and Grow Rich under desire on the left side of the page, I got the things memorized, but it says what the 6 steps to riches. And he's asked you, what do you want? And you can plug in there what you want to, but it says next one, what do you intend to give to entitle you to what you're wanting? There is no such thing as, he's quoting Thomas Jefferson, there's no such thing as something for nothing. As Jefferson said, the saddest day in your life is when you sit down and start planning how you go get something for nothing. You got to exchange something another by means of sale. Sell your beauty, sell your talent, sell your singing voice, your writing ability, or sell a product that you make, a mousetrap or whatever, and that someone is willing to give you money for, and that's it. But you got to do something other about it, and you got to implement what you're talking about. But most people never get that. They can say, well, I don't know this much, or I don't know that. That's why such things as working through a mastermind with other people, you're never going to, okay, just say that's 3 of us, myself and these two lovely ladies. We're sitting here in Virginia, and we want to go to, well, let's just say we want to go to Naples, Florida. We don't have to know all the steps. We'll all pack our luggage and get in the car and everything, and we know we got to head south. But if we start over the mountains, and it's happened before, even on the interstate, and they've had a rock slide and the road's blocked, and you got to reroute. So, well, we just go back home, the road's blocked. No, you find another route. That's the same way with our life. We wait till things are perfect. We never start. We keep making excuses. But excuses would be just like you going outside and sitting in a rocking chair and sit all day. It may be comfortable, but it won't take you nowhere. So it's important that you start. The most important part of anything you accomplish is the starting. It's not the plans. Plans themselves are worthless. It's simply starting, doing what you think's the first step. It can be wrong, but that doesn't mean that you can't change your plans, talk to someone else, get some help. But the main thing is starting and then developing what we call is persistence. And I can give you thousands and thousands of examples. If you follow Steve Jobs, and I hope you haven't bought some Apple stock, he said all his qualities, his persistence. He may not have known how to do anything, but he had persistence. And I know you young ladies, you know Billy Ray Cyrus. And you know, if you read his book, it's called Hillbilly Heart. And he's born not far from here, just across the Kentucky line. We're like 15 miles from Kentucky. And he was thrown out of college for having dogs in his rooms by a lady president. He wasn't supposed to have dogs in his room. He's on a baseball scholarship. Well, he's kicked out of college. He's out in his car one day, and he's seen this car broke down, and he stopped it and was an old man. He tells about it in his book. He titled it Persistence. He said, the gentleman was an elderly gentleman. He said, well, I'm surprised that young person stopped to help an old man out. He said, well, look like you're having car trouble. And so he took care of what it was. And he said, here's my card, stop at my office. I got something for you. He stopped and he gave him a copy of Think and Grow Rich. He said, of course, sure he was, been thrown out of school, nothing to do. And he read that book and he said, it was like a voice said, why, Billy Ray, why don't you get you a guitar and start you a band? And he said he did. And he said they practiced. And he said they got jigs at $50. And we call them beer joints. They're basically rough places. And he said they get $50 a night, maybe $100. But you girls know he come out with that song, Achy Breaky Heart, that the girls like to dance to. Well, of course, we know the rest of it is history. He's made hundreds of millions of dollars, no doubt. But it started with him helping that gentleman. That gentleman gave him a book, and the persistence man was it. Gosh, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick with it. And he stuck with it. He even tells us.
I feel like a lot of the most successful people nowadays, they are successful because they follow Napoleon Hill principles. Right, like Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, everyone. How did you get introduced to Napoleon Hill? It was through a book, or how did
I get connected?
yeah,
Well,
get connected?
maybe you use this. Sometimes our shelf don't come in, right?
Yeah.
Who said you can't swim out where it is? Okay, and that's what I did. I went and spoke to a historical club one night, and I was a bank president. Okay, I didn't need. I'm not tell you what all, but I've been involved in so many businesses. I've been president of the foundation board, which is fundraising college, for 16 years. I've been on the board for 20 years, chairman of the board of a local hospital, president of Chamber of Commerce. The list goes on and on and on. I didn't need it, but I went and spoke about it. And a little town was where Napoleon Hill was born. Very, very sparsely, let's see. They don't have a red light. I drove through the other day. They don't have a red light. So that's how small it is. But anyway, I spoke at the Historical Society, which was Helter Meetings in the Presbyterian Church. And basically those people didn't know about Napoleon Hill. And this is where he's from. And I remember one lady in particular, she came up to me and said, "You mentioned Gary Francis Powers. That probably won't mean that to you." She said, "That's my brother." Gary Francis Powers was a pilot during the Roosevelt or Eisenhower administration that got shot down over Russia, a spy plane. Y'all might have seen that, Strangers on the Bridge. You made a movie out of it, but he spent time in the Russian prison for spying on Russia, and they shot his plane down, and they exchanged the prisoners. But this guy's sister was in the bit. But I listened to audio tapes when I was going over there and back. When I got back, I keep a yellow pad on my nightstand in case I might wake up or think of something other than, and I got a pencil. I'll write down notes. But I got back that night. I wrote a note to the foundation, which was located in the suburb of Chicago, and I told them what I'd done and I'd spoken all. I got a letter back, invited me to come up and have dinner with them, and this was with W. Clement Stone and the board and all. And and I listened to him, and I knew what part he'd played. And I guess they said he was a billionaire, but he was a rich man. He had a terrific story. When we got through eating lunch, we talked, and he told me, I remember him calling me boy, and I wasn't no boy, but anyway, he said, "You know more about these books than I do." He said, "You ought to be a board member." And I said, "Mr. Stone," which is what everybody called him except Ron Reagan. President called him Clem. None of us ever called him Clem. They called him Mr. Stone out of respect. And he said, I said, "What do I need to do to be on the board?" And he said, "We'll pay your expenses, and you just attend the meetings and keep up with what's going on." And I did. And so when the other guy's health was bad, I'm only the second CEO. And we had a chance to sell the bank. My trustee said, "Don, what do you think about selling the bank?" I said, "Well, I got a lot of stock." I said, "You guys, I'm working for y'all." Of course, I had something else to do. I was involved in all these other businesses. And I said, and I knew it was going to be a lot of money. And so we did. And they offered me the position. And of course, I was connected with a college. And so here I am, 22 years of doing this. See, now nobody come and knocked on my door and say, "Don, we got an opportunity for you." Yeah. You have to be out in the circles. You have to make friends, and you have to keep, you have to stay involved in things. And it's amazing what will come to you. But and I think you get to be that. I have no technical skills whatsoever. My dad worked as an underground miner, as an electrician, and seems like my brothers have. Believe me, ladies, I could not hang a picture that would satisfy. I have no talent whatsoever when it comes to technical skills. But I think I have been blessed with creativity. We had 16 books when I started. At the end of 1999, they had 16 books, and they were 160 some odd books that we published. And believe me, I've read every one of them and over and over. And I developed a foreign market, which they didn't have. We have way over 500 foreign publishers. Ooh. I've licensed books in Russia. My little millionaire mindset, I rushed it the other day with what's going on. And I licensed a book in Ukraine. with all that's going on during all this, just one day last week. So we have 35 different publishers in Russia alone, and we have close to 50 in China. And we publish in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Macedonia, Cyprus, Greece, you name it, and we got books there. And we keep adding to the list. So
okay, Don, what's your blueprint to success based on the Napoleon Hill's principle? And what was the biggest lesson you have learned from that?
From what?
Do you think your blueprint to success was based on Hill's principles? And what was the biggest lesson that you've learned from his teachings, from Napoleon Hill's teachings?
Well, I've learned that what Michelangelo said, it's not that we set dreams too big and fail. It's that we'll set goals too small and succeed. I mean, anything was in our reach if we're willing to, basically, if we're willing to pay the price and develop them things is. And it all starts out with having a purpose, knowing what you want to do, and then develop the plans and the persistence and the other qualities that need to be put in place.
So when you make this transition from, because you said you had you didn't even have a bathroom in your house, and then to achieving being very successful in achieving the Rolex, Mercedes, of course, these are just material success, but did you had a mentor, or it was more your persistence and your purpose, or did you read the Napoleon Hill principles and that helped you to guide?
I read the principles, but a gentleman, he's a real quiet individual, and he's worth $100. I don't know how much he's worth. I doubt if he does, but he called me when I was in the finance business. I was arranging a little office, probably making $80 or $85 a week, and he had started a bank at age 29. And if you know banking, they were criticized for lack of management depth, and he was looking for a number 2 person to expand the management because the area is in a coal producing area and the bank was growing fast. He called me and asked me would I be interested, and I told him yes, that I always thought that I could learn enough about finance and background that banking would be an ideal job for my mindset. And so he asked me he'd like to do an interview. So I made arrangements on the weekend, and he said, "You can't come during the week." And I said, "No." I told him, I called him Mr. That these people have been real good to me. They give me an office. They paid for my continuing education, and but I think I owed it to myself to consider an opportunity. So I come on the weekend. He read the same books I did. Okay, his dad's an underground coal miner. He got a degree in engineering, but he's a bright gentleman. One of the most intelligent people I've ever been around but he read the same books I had, and he's an average reader. So is these other people that I've been around, and he's a mentor. He's a supporter. He'll hire anyone I send to him because I've never sent him anyone that wasn't qualified. I mean, Alan that works for me didn't like Indiana. His little wife, they had twins, and they started to you see them have to go to school in northern winters. And I said, "Alan, sell your house and move to Atlanta, Georgia, or Dallas, Texas, and I will get your wife a job. You can still do what we can." He said, "You can?" I said, "Yes." And I got her resume. She had an MBA from Purdue, and I sent it to Jim. And he hired her, and he brags on her all the time. And when he went down there and bought the house before she ever even went to work, and he sent me an email one day, and he said, "Don, you're the best." Anyway, he told me, here's what he told me in the interview. This was June 1975, which has been 47 years ago. I remember it like it was 5 minutes ago. He said, "Don, on your job, you do a little extra one day, it won't matter." Said, "You do a little extra for a week, it probably won't matter. But if you'll work harder and all the other people around you, I promise you, one day you'll be the success most of the world's only going to dream of. He's a mentor. He's a monetary supporter. We stay in touch with each other, though we're in different directions. He's in manufacturing, primarily in real estate development. And but he's tremendous, and we'll talk. Sometimes he'll call when I'm home. We'll talk for an hour. We talk about business and other things, and how our kids turn out, and so forth, and what we're doing, and so forth. And every once in a while we'll get together and have lunch. And he's been extremely well to us. So those people are worth a fortune that we can learn from. We can learn from other people. Heck, monkeys learn from monkeys. Surely people can learn from people.
And that's what you said, right? Surround yourself with who you want to become, and not with losers, because that.
Well, see, we do a lot of work in prisons. Okay, when I had time, I used to speak in the federal and state prisons. I spoke in lots and lots of prisons, 2 of them locally. But I don't get around to it like I did. But we support them a lot with books. We'll get letters. We get letters every week, not every day, but we'll get several letters every week from somebody in prison. The last one I got, the guy served 50 years. He said he was driving a car and it resulted in somebody's death. Probably driving drunk. But anyway, he got a 50-year sentence. He had served 10, and he wanted to, he'd heard of our books, and could we furnish him something other? We sent a book. And but here's what happens to the prison people. They're in a community, and I don't, for drugs or ever what, serve 5 years age, what in a term loose. What do? Probably 99 times out of 100, they go back to the same community, got the same friends, same associates they had that got them in trouble to start with. You know, if you've read Hill's book that I've composed, Napoleon Hill's Golden Rules, in 1919, the article in there, the first article is he wrote in there about our social and our physical environment. Now, the physical part, you gals, nice skin tones, your hair color, your eyes. And so, you know, we get from our parents, grandparents, or passed down to you. But not too awful much you can do. But our social environment's the other one. We can change it. In other words, if you associate with people, everybody that you know is half of them's on drugs or dealing in drugs or what have you, probably if you want a clean slate and you want to improve yourself, maybe that you should stay away from those people. Because if you'll watch young people, there's 3 or 4 of them standing together, they're all smoking. They track those people that smoke. Nobody in my family smokes. In fact, I never hire anyone that smokes. Never hire anybody. I can find out if they smoke or not, because I don't want to smell it on them. I don't want them to mess up. I was chairman of the board of the hospital, and when they offered me the position, I told the sisters, it's a Catholic hospital, I'm not a Catholic. I said, I love you people. I love the nurses, but I am tired of coming in here and the nurses standing outside the doorways and patients have to go through them smelling that smoke. And so they forbid it, and they made them go to their car. I don't want to make friends or not, but that we don't have the right to inflict that on someone else. And you know, everybody's got habits, but when your habit affects someone else, like going out and eat, and the people all light up next to you, and you're trying to enjoy your food, enjoy a meal, and it's just not right. So your surroundings is extremely important. Extremely important.
Don, what are some success habits that people can incorporate in their daily lives?
Is they what?
What were some success habits that people could incorporate
in their daily life?
Well, of course, a starting point of all achievements, purpose, or goals. And you got to find something you love to do. I don't care what it is. It's going to be saving stray cats and dogs or whatever. But you got to have something so passionate about, because if you're doing something other than sort of, I'm going to do this because I hate what I'm doing, but I'll make a lot of money. We don't live this way at one time, for as I know of. We better find something other we enjoy doing and get up thinking about it and have it on our mind. Put our little gold cards on, 3 to 5 cards, stick them in our pocket when you're waiting on someone. Look it out and said, oh, I said I was going to do this, and here it is. here it is May, and I've not even got started. Keep constantly reminding us the things that we want on our minds. And I know I did a speech one time on goal setting at a Chamber of Commerce. I was president of the chamber. I don't know where it was at that time or not. But this lady at break came up, and of course I knew her, but she identified herself. She was a school teacher. She said, "Oh, I have goals. I just don't write them down." I said, "That's what we call dreams." Wow. If it's what you want to do, is not important. You write it down. You write it down, and it said, "This is a contract I'm making with myself. This is what I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3." I mean, if you don't think enough of it to put it down, there's even a verse in the Bible that says, if you have a vision, write it down, make it plain. That's about as good as you can get. If you have something you want to do, put it in front of you. I mean, you can say, "Yeah, I won't forget." Well, if you can't put it down in writing, how much do you really think about it? And to have it up as a constant reminder. That's the point of a vision board. If you got the house on there, don't let it get out of your mind if you really want it. And we'll attract those things. I can't remember the guy's name right off the bat, but yeah, I could. But he said when he wanted to lose weight, he took a picture of a guy in a brief underwears and as an advertising, and he pinned it on his door. And of course, he'd had about 30 pounds to go, but he looked at that picture of that guy that had the right size. But he's also famous for a thing that we did at a fundraising. He said everything in life is, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? And that will determine your success. If you start off with something other, it gets a little hard to, well, I don't. She told me I shouldn't try that. I didn't have no skills in this, or I didn't know the right people, what have you. I guess she's right, and so forth. And we develop that. We'll never get nowhere. You know, after you write down the contract, say, "This is what I am going to do," and you put it down, and you put it down right, and you put a date on it. And now you might not reach it when you say you did. That doesn't mean you failed. I mean, for example, I did mine on when I was going to finish college, take the night courses, because when I went to school, it was a 2-year school, and I had to work and go to school at night. Sometimes the class I wanted to teach was taught the same night. It meant when I was majoring in accounting and finance, which meant I had to wait till the next, and was none of my doing. I couldn't change the college schedule very easy. And so sometimes things don't happen exactly when you want them. It may take you 3 months, 6 months, or a year, but that does, like on the building a house. You might not got it built the year you wanted it, but you kept working with it. I mean, for example, you build a house, you can get job transferred or whatever, and you have to acquire a different piece of land or something. There could be reasons comes up, but it's not reason to quit if you really want. If you really want to go, you find a way around it, over it, or under it, or whatever. But you don't quit because of an obstacle. And you know, you can look at obstacles as simply something to stop you, or you can look at something to propel you. But see, guess what? We get to choose which one that is. Am I going to let them just stop me? No, I'm not going to let them stop it. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to talk to so-and-so, or I'm going to arrange a meeting. I'm going to find somebody who can tell me how I can get in that school, because I don't know the right people or what have you. I'll find out who they are, or I don't have the money. Well, I know people that's got ability to attract scholarships and so forth. Just have a passion for what you want to do. And if you have it, you'll get the answers. You'll pick up the phone and call somebody, and you won't have to make excuses. I love that bit. If you're a failure, you keep making excuses. I didn't go to right school. Parents never sent me to right school. We never had no money. On and on and on. I don't have the background, what have you. But if you're a success, you don't have to explain it. It speaks for itself. You don't have to explain it. And I got a little sign on my desk back there on my books by Ben Sweetland. And it simply says, "Success is a journey, not a destination." That simply means is we're improving all the time. I can't get saying, "Well, I got this. I said I was going to get this, and I was going to get this, and I got all this. Now I'm done." No, you keep on doing, because life is a journey. You can keep having a positive effect on people. You can keep publishing books or what you're doing, as long as you're here, because none of us knows. But I think it's better to be busy up to the very end if it's humanly possible than sitting around making excuses, because so much things get so much easier for you because you got more background and you got more experience. For example, I've had people said, read Think and Grow Rich, why should you read again? Well, I can give you a good example. You good looking women, you don't take a bath one time and say, well, now I don't go have to do that no more. No, this stuff that we work in, we constantly apply it to us, and the results accumulate. We don't, because when you read Think and Grow Rich, you might be 20 years old, and then by the time you're 30 or ever what, you read it again, you get a different meaning. The book's not changed, but you have. You've read other books.
Because I first read Think and Grow Rich, I think when I was 18 years old, and at that time, it was very difficult for me to read the book. I'll be honest with you. I would read and I was like, it doesn't make that much sense. And I read this book probably like 20 times already. And every time I read it, it's a different knowledge that I get from it and a different perspective. But like you said, the book didn't change, but I changed. Just one last question. If you could say only one message to the entire world, what would that be? That's the last question.
If one thing.
Yes. One message for
one. I'll tell you the one lesson, and it's on happiness. There is only one way, and you don't have to believe me or not, but it might take you a while, but there is only one way for true happiness in our lifetime, and that's what was made. And that is when we are making a difference in someone else's life. As long as you say, well, if I got that black Mercedes, if I got that gold Rolex, whatever, I'd be happy. Or if I got that second house, I'd be happy. No, you'll be happy when you're spending time making someone else happy, because that's what we was put here for, to encourage one another. I mean, take a young person. I'm not judging them. I don't know their background or whatever, but I know that they need, sometimes all they need is a pat on the back and saying, hey, Susie, I know things is rough, but the sun will come up tomorrow. You're going to be all right. You got good personality. You've got good gift of gab, and so forth and so on. Sometimes that might be all you can do, but it may be all that's needed. I remember the year my daughter graduated, and I was a bank president. One of my loan officers, door was open. I could see she was financing a vehicle for a guy, and I saw him. I'd been president of Little League also. Even though I had no boys, only had a daughter. And but she liked following the baseball, probably because of the boys. But anyway, I knew his son was on the baseball team, and what do you say? A guy's coming in and borrowing a bunch of money from you, and I didn't want to be a snob. I just said, I said, yeah, I see you a lot to ball games. I said, where's your son going to college? And blank, blank, nowhere. He said it's too expensive. All I could think of, it's not as expensive as ignorance. And see, and he probably meant well. If the boy had it in him, he wanted to go to college. His dad said, son, you crazy? We ain't got some money. No, he said, if that's really where you want to go, let's see what we can do. They scholarships run out to years. We've got an endowment, this little college, of $175 million. We send lots and lots and lots and lots of kids to school. We've done so many scholarships, it's unbelievable. I can take any young person out there, and if they have a desire, I assure you, if they got the desire to work, I can get them through the college year if they want it bad enough. But see, what that man didn't realize, any dream that kid had, he's killed it. Because no doubt the kids, well, he's older than I am. He's been around a long time. I guess we can't afford it. So I'll go out here and get me a job, manual labor, bagging groceries or something. See, he should have never done that. What he does, we're trying to protect our kids. It's kind of like saying, don't get in the water, you learn how to swim. Don't cross the street, and on and on and on. They have to take risks. I remember when I started doing the stock market, and my wife said, from all she knew, she thought stock was a risky business. I said, Phil, honey, I'll make some mistakes. I know I will, but I'll look at them as lessons learned rather than I've done something wrong. But just remember, the biggest risk in life is taking no risk at all, because that's the world we live in. You'll never, the three most, and we do it of grants and whatever, and handle finances. The three most important letters in the English language is ASK. If you don't ask for it, I can assure you, you're probably not going to get it. And some people just can't learn that. They may be surprised I mean, our books we do. I mean, I have some. Well, I'll tell you the one in Brazil, and I gotta let you go. But it was probably 15 years ago. Judy, I worked with for 17 years, and she's a bright lady. She had a master's from Purdue, taught at Purdue, and she said there were some Brazilians that were interested in licensing our course. And could I come up and talk to them? Yeah, we can arrange a time. So I flew up to Indiana, suburb of Chicago, and I'm sitting here at the board table. On the end is about a dozen people, because I'm taking notes. So the guy on my left was one of his two partners in Brazil, and Jamil and Walter.
You're from Brazil.
Well, anyway, one of them said, "Why don't we go around and introduce yourself and say what language we speak?" Now, the lady who worked with me, she'd already told me that they couldn't pay no money down, but they could pay a higher royalty rate. And I said, "Okay, I'll listen." So the one on my left says, "Why don't we introduce yourself, go around the table and tell what language you speak." So they brought two interpreters with them, and this guy, he spoke English and Portuguese. Somebody spoke English and Spanish. And of course, I call him Chino, works with me. He's born in Mexico. He's Spanish. Judy had taught Spanish. Alan's worked with us for 16, 17 years. He's Chinese. So he spoke Mandarin and English and something else. And see, I'm going to be the last person, okay? I'm going to be the last person. And this is what I did. I drew a big dollar sign and held them on board. And I said, that's what I speak. And I said, "Guys, I think y'all got a wonderful opportunity. I know you love Napoleon Hill's works, and we'd be glad to license our course in Portuguese with a $50,000 advance due on signing the contract." Walter, my left, says, "I don't see no problem with that." And they paid the $50,000, and they renewed it on 5-year terms twice, a total of 3 times now at $50,000 a whack. So we broke for lunch. Judy comes up to me and she says, "They told me they didn't have no money. I don't know how in the world you could ask somebody for $50,000. I said, "Judy, it's nice to read poetry, sit under a shade tree, but you're not going to get nothing in life if you don't remember the ASK." And she said, "I just couldn't do it." And I said, "Well, to be a financial success, you can get paid for what you, but you really want to make good money." I said, you have to apply that." And I said, "What can they do? Say no? You've got to know if you don't ask, and you just never know." But see, now she thought that was wonderful. I'm thinking, "Gosh, that was too easy. I should have asked for 100." You know, of course, that's just the greedy banker in me.
Well, thank you so much, Don. And I am a student of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I did the online course, and then that's something we also want to promote here on the podcast today, that people, if they have the opportunity, they really should do it and invest in themselves, because that's like the fast path to success. So you guys are doing.
Well, you can tell.
Yes.
You can tell them on the course, and people ask me, "What should they invest in?" I never tell nobody. I could tell you that if you'd bought 1,000 shares of Microsoft a few years ago, you would have had a $30,000 investment. You would have made about $300,000 a day. I don't tell nobody what to invest in the way of money and so forth, because they need to learn themselves, or read Wall Street, read Forbes, follow Warren Buffett, and make your own decision. That's the only way you will learn. But when people ask me, I tell them the same thing I tell my family members, I tell my friends, the best investment you'll ever make in life is the investment you make in yourself. Yeah. Nothing can take the place of it.
That's true.
Because I've been banking a long, long time. The person selling gold is going to tell you to buy gold. I'm not saying buying gold is bad. It may be according to what the purpose of life. I'm not going to tell people to worry the stock. The guy selling stock, he wants you to buy stock. The guy selling real estate, he wants you to buy real estate, so forth and so on, because they're looking out for their interests, because that's how they make their living. We need to make those decisions which are best for us and our family, based on how much risk we can understand, how long we've got to grow the portfolio and so forth, and what our life expectancy is, and our retirement age and so forth. and how much risk are we willing to take. Because if you really want to be risky, you go out Vegas and then you go out there and win, and probably not going to happen. But what you invest in yourself is you can make those decisions yourself. And and you look at them and you say, well, I made a mistake. No, you didn't make a mistake. You learned something not to do again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the person that's never made a mistake and never had something other, and I don't learn to look at them as something it's bad. It's something other that's part of their education. And that's important, because if you don't, you make one bad investment, well, I'm not going to do that no more. No, I'm just going to be more careful. I use that for lessons. And I could tell you some, don't have time, but I learned a good lesson in selling art, because I collected and sold art when I was in the bank of business. I had more time than I have now. But I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much
It was
for your
amazing.
time, Don.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
We keep in touch. Thank you.
I appreciate you both.
All right. Aloha.
Mahalo.
I love you guys. Okay.